Question. On the night of the 14th November 2018, I was enveloped in a ray of golden light and lifted to heaven in my dream. As I passed by many heavenly gates, I saw the victorious fighting Buddha in mid-air, radiating a golden glow. Victorious fighting Buddha was wearing a suit of golden armor and appeared slightly different from the last time I saw him in the heavenly realm. Nevertheless, he still looked solemn and dignified. Victorious fighting Buddha was worried that I would be lost without a guide, so he had come to lead me in the direction of the hall of Guandi Bodhisattva. I found myself distracted by the beautiful sights and scenery of the heavenly realm. There were rainbow clouds surrounding buildings and palaces of various grand designs, and inside them were bodhisattvas, dharma protectors, and goddesses from the heavenly realm. Just then, Victorious Fighting Buddha sent me a thought message to remind me that if I were to fall due to my distraction, he wouldn't care. So I immediately refocused all my attention on following Victorious Fighting Buddha. We arrived at the hall of Guandi Bodhisattva, which was blasting with activity that day. Many Dharma protectors and goddesses were in attendance. The goddesses in heaven looked very beautiful and wore multicolored light gauze dresses. In front of the entrance was an enormous lotus pond, with wisps of clouds floating faintly in the water that showed images of the human realm. The Dharma protectors in heaven monitor and safeguard the disciples who cultivate in the human realm. Once they discover that a disciple has committed an unwholesome deed, they report it immediately to Guandi Bodhisattva. The Buddha, Jigong Bodhisattva, Guanyin Bodhisattva, Nanjing Bodhisattva, and Master Lu's Dharma body were all there, and I pay my respect to every Buddha and Bodhisattva. Jigong Bodhisattva asked me, "The last time you visited heaven, you said that the human mind was the darkest. Then what is the lightest in the human realm?" I replied, "The human mind is the lightest." Jigong Bodhisattva laughed. "Why did you say so?" I replied, "It is because the human mind can create wholesomeness." Jigong Bodhisattva asked me again, "So how is it that the human mind is both the darkest and the lightest? Isn't that contradictory?" I replied again, "It's because the human mind has been diluted and defied in the human realm, and that's why it creates unwholesomeness and turns dark. If one cleanses the defilements and discovers their true nature, one will find that their innate nature is wholesome, so there is no contradiction." Every Buddha and Bodhisattva laughed. I had no idea if my answer was right or wrong, so I foolishly laughed along with them. Guanyin Bodhisattva told me, "All the glory, splendor, wealth, and status in the human realm become empty in the blink of an eye. Humans are greedy for fame and wealth. They don't cultivate wholesome deeds. Rather, they commit various types of unwholesome deeds that lead them to the lower realms, evil paths, where they suffer enormously. Even if you have a human body, you would still suffer hardships, and your life will be full of obstacles. Hell isn't scary. It's the human mind that creates karma that is scary. Everything is created by the mind. It can create both wholesomeness and unwholesomeness. Today, an offender has been transferred to the underworld from the hell associated with sexual misconduct. Take this order and watch the trial. Upon your return to the human realm, immediately write down what you have observed and send it to your master so that other people can understand that fame, wealth, and sex are poisons that must not be pursued excessively. You must warn the people in the human realm. You may go now." A ray of golden light whisked me off to the king of hell in the underworld. A male offender wept and wailed as he knelt on the ground. As I took a second look, I saw that his entire body was covered in what appeared to be bug bites. The offender uttered, "When alive, I was a businessman, and there was a period in which the business was quite successful. I was married. After my wife gave birth to our child, I began to dislike her. I gave her the cold shoulder, complaining that she was not as attractive as before. As my business was doing well, I would go out with my business partners and drinking buddies to nightclubs and other places of entertainment to pick up girls. My wife couldn't financially support herself, so she had no other choice than to obey my every whim. After I died, the King of Hell summoned a display depicting every unsightly activity I took part in. I could see how heartbroken my wife was, and how she cried and complained to her family and friends. I regret what I have done. My wife married me when I was very poor, and helped me to educate and take care of our child. We had been through the toughest time together. I didn't treat her well. I know that I was wrong. I hope that you can tell all the men in the human realm that the women in the nightclubs are not sincere. They are there solely for the money. After we die, we will be held responsible for every bad act we've committed. I feel sorry for my wife, whose broken heart is all my fault. Do not commit deeds of sexual misconduct. It will bring you no benefit. Rather, it only leads you to hell. We men are foolish. We think these kinds of things are to be proud of. I was obsessed with the beauty and bodies of women and committed many acts of sexual misconduct. I knew nothing about the Buddha Dharma when I was alive, nor did I know that when I die, these kinds of unwholesome deeds will only lead one to the hell associated with sexual misconduct. After I died, the King of Hell ordered the enforcement officers to first take me to the hell of eyeshock. I followed the enforcement officers down a dark and narrow path and arrived at a very large and spacious place. The enforcement officers handed me to the officers in charge there, who dragged and pushed me into a large enclosed area. There were many guards on the outside, making sure that we offenders did not escape. I was shivering all over because I didn't know what kinds of punishment awaited me. It was dark and gloomy all around, with many offenders scattered about. There were constant flashes of light, followed by painful cries. I walked a short distance and halted, not daring to move further. Suddenly, a ray of light was shining from above my head, and when I looked up, I saw clips showing all the different women I had intimate relationships with, and all the pornographic videos I had watched previously were played inside my mind. Within a minute, two intense electric currents shot straight into my eyes, coursing through my body, paralyzing it amid horrid buzzing sounds. My skin, burnt and beginning to smoke, was so painful. If you've never been electrocuted, you wouldn't comprehend the pain. When I was alive, I thought I was such a tough guy. I wouldn't have imagined that the punishments from hell would be so excruciatingly painful. I couldn't stop crying and screaming. I don't even know whether the electric current coursed through my body for 10 or 30 minutes, but it certainly felt like a year. It was so painful, to be honest, said the offender, who wept. After crying for a while, he continued, I don't even remember how long I was inside this hell. It could have been a few days, or it could have been a week. Each time I fainted due to the electric shot, I would wake up and endure the same punishment over and over again. The shocks only stopped when an enforcement officer called my name. I was dragged from that hell onto another narrow and crooked path. After walking for a while, I was handed over to another pair of enforcement officers and told to follow them. From a distance, I could smell something foul, like feces. With all my heart, I didn't want to take another step, but the tall and strong enforcement officers dragged me forcefully into a large cavern. Inside was a pool of excrement. It looked exactly like the huge septic tanks in the human realm. There were many people immersed in it, men, women, and you couldn't make out their faces because they were covered entirely in feces. They were wailing constantly, and I was shivering profusely with fear. Suddenly, the enforcement officers halted me into the pool of excrement. I tried so hard to endure the foul, pungent stench, which almost made me pass out right there in the pool of excrement. When I was alive, I knew how to swim. When I tried to swim in the pool of excrement, enforcement officers watched the whole time. In fact, it is literally impossible to swim onto the shore, as our bodies were so completely covered in feces that we were unable to get a grip. After swimming for a while, I began to feel extremely itchy. When I looked closely, I was terrified. There were many small bugs inside the pool, latching onto our bodies, biting us. The pain shook me right to my core. It was so itchy and incredibly painful. When I was alive, I thought that I was capable of enduring many hardships. I never imagined that the tiny bugs in hell could make a tough guy like me cry and wail inside a pool of excrement. Nobody cared about us offenders, as we were just left there, floating in excrement. It was too late for regrets. The king of hell said to the offender, "When you were alive, you didn't contain your desires. Excessive indulgence leads to the deterioration of one's health, and you were behaving promiscuously. Did you know that, originally, you were due to receive extremely great worldly blessings? In your previous life, you donated money regularly to the unfortunate, which would have endowed you with sufficient wealth, while your business would have flourished and future generations would pick up the mantle. It's a pity you failed to cherish your blessings. Instead, you became intoxicated with your desires and squandered your blessings, failing even to set an example for your children by performing wholesome and meritorious deeds. You were also fond of eating freshly killed creatures. The offender watched a display showing him eating seafood and killing rabbits to serve to his family, friends, and guests. The king continued, "You must know that their spirits were filled with resentment, and after they died, they occupied your body. When you were negotiating business deals, these animal spirits frequently interfered with your thoughts, leading you to make bad decisions and causing you to suffer losses. Can you really blame them? You took away their lives, so it's perfectly normal for them to take revenge. Sentient beings in the animal realm are all offenders like you, who committed many unwholesome deeds and were sentenced to be reborn as beings in the 6 realms of existence. You aren't knowledgeable about the status of sentient beings, so I won't say more. You also like to go to nightclubs and other places with terribly strong yin energy. But you must understand that the women working at these places have truly dreadful energy fields. You see only their surface beauty, failing to realize that after they die, they will become extremely ugly-looking spirits. As these women have committed numerous offenses, they were sentenced to hell and be punished after death. During my previous trips, I have seen countless once beautiful women become disfigured and defiled looking as a result of torture." The king added, "To me, beauty in the human realm is nothing but an empty shell. All of these women came from poor and impoverished backgrounds and had to sell their body to make money. They already lacked worldly blessings. yet you continue to mix with them to satisfy your lust, causing your mind to become devoid of right intention. You only cared about indulging yourself, and your mind became dull. That's why your business and finances entered a spiral of problems. The underworld not only deducted the wealth you derived from the worldly blessings caused from your previous life, according to the degree of your sexual misconduct, but you will also be sent to hell for punishment. Only after your negative karma has been cleared can you be reborn. The king of hell told me that the majority of those released from hell will be reborn in the animal realm. The king said, in your previous life, you engaged in spiritual practice and you had some karmic affinity with Guanyin Bodhisattva. It is because of this affinity with Buddhism that you were selected to give your testimony to this heavenly child, so that she may write it down and alert people in the human realm to the realities of hell. With this meritorious deed, you still have a chance to be reborn as a human. But first, you must go back and serve the rest of your sentence. You don't need to beg me. You have to bear full responsibility for the offenses you have committed. The enforcement officers took the offender away. The king of hell sighed and said, this offender was invited by someone from his hometown to attend one of Master Jun Hong Lu's Dharma talk in country X. It's a pity he didn't cultivate. If he had understood the law of karma, he wouldn't have ended up in this situation. People who are too endowed with wealth and worldly blessings generally pay no heed to Buddha Dharma and do not know how to cultivate by observing the 5 precepts and performing the 10 wholesome deeds. In his previous life, he was a Buddhist whose cultivation failed to reach fruition. As a result, he was reborn in the human realm with riches, but he became deluded, creating negative karma in this lifetime. Now he has been sent to hell. Since ancient times, fame and fortune have been like a bubble, but the circle of rebirth keeps turning in accordance with the karma you create, whether it be wholesome or unwholesome. I was enveloped in a ray of golden light and sent back to the human realm. When I woke, I was overwhelmed with feelings. All the glory, splendor, wealth, and status in the human realm can make a person deluded. Observing the sins of those offenders crying in front of the king of hell after they were sent to hell upon their death had stirred me deeply. Master Jun Hong Lu's reply: people who are lecherous and commit acts of sexual misconduct all descend to hell. Don't your dreams seem real? In the future, when you go down, it will be exactly like a dream. In the past, you committed many deeds of sexual misconduct, didn't you? If you continue, you will not rest in peace. You must reform yourself completely